Elder Scrolls Online doing good in 2023? That would be surprising. Let's see.
You know, I'm always interested whenever a game gets a new update that adds content offering entirely new ways to play. Just introducing
True.
systems or features or content types that really mix up the standard mode of playing the game. Well, recently, the Elder Scrolls
Yeah, I think everyone loves that. That is no secret.
Online did exactly that. Last month, with update number 40, they introduced the Endless Archive, a brand new PvE challenge where you fight through rooms of enemies with boss battles in between, and this roguelite system of per-run buffs that change how you play, in some cases in significant ways. All of this besides for the sake of playing the content.
Are you telling me this video is just gonna be that Elder Scrolls Online stole from World of Warcraft, one of the most hated expansion ever to release, the Shadowlands, and the most hated mechanic ever released in Shadowlands, the Tower, whatever it was called. It was some kind of the Maw Tower, the Maw, or I don't remember what it's called. So you're telling me Elder Scrolls Online, grand thing that they did in 2023 was steal World of Warcraft's worst mechanic in history. Wow. Dude, stuff like this gets so repetitive so fast it's insane, okay? There's no way this is gonna succeed in the long run.
Is done in service of collecting loot, including a unique mount, pets, some currency, cosmetics, and these brand new sets of class-specific gear. Best of all, Endless Archive is a base game update, meaning that it's not locked behind.
Please tell me you get these items as rewards from buying them from a guy called the Rune Crafter at the end. Please tell me that.
Any DLC or chapters, and for that reason, it is entirely free for anyone who already owns Elder Scrolls Online. New content added for free that you can just jump in and check out. So I do want to thank Bethesda for sponsoring today's video. They asked me just to share with you.
Well now, I'm not gonna lie, that explains a lot. Oh, Force! Hey, get that bag, Queen. I support you fully. You're a G-Force, you know. I would do the same thing. If Bethesda told me say something good about Starfield, I would jack them off until no tomorrow.
What this update is about, check it out. And I've done just that. I've played over the course of the past week or so. I think I've got a pretty firm grasp on what Endless Archive is, and I'm just going to tell you about it. Plain and simple. See if it's something you...
Yeah, again, it's the... What is it called? The Maw Tower? I forgot what it's called, but man, everyone hated doing it and grinding for Soul Ash. Wow. No, seriously. They stole World of Warcraft's first mechanic. Amazing.
You might be interested in. So let's jump in and talk about Endless Archive. Now, as the name implies, this is a new PvE content type that offers endless progression. You, either solo or with a friend in a duo, will enter the archives, clear through a few rooms of basic and elite enemies, after which you fight a boss. Kill the boss, collect some loot, then move on to clear more rooms of enemies before arriving at the next boss, so on and so on. All along the way, you'll find these short and long-term buffs that power you up during a run, adding huge boost to your existing abilities, increasing your offenses, your defenses, or utility, and sometimes even granting access to entirely new skills that you otherwise wouldn't have. Now, the further you progress, the harder things get until you simply...
Well, I guess... Well, no, you can say that World of Warcraft also granted you new skills because they completely... some things in the tower completely changed how... Man... It's killing me that I don't remember what's the name of the tower. Some things completely changed how skills function in the tower, so yeah, dude. Oh no.
Can't go any longer. In fact, the difficulty is one of the...
By the way, I'm completely fine that every MMO steals from every other MMO as long as it's the fun and good stuff, okay? I'm completely fine with that. But when you steal the worst stuff, that's where I start to question things.
standout features here. Endless Archive provides a real challenge for both solo and duo players, something that people have been asking for in ESO for quite some time. So that's like the high level overview. Let's talk about the specifics now. First, with getting started. To start out, you actually just need to head to Apocrypha. So if you do own the Necrom chapter, you could physically walk there if you like. The entrance is found to the northeast of Cypher's Midden. But as mentioned, Endless Archive is totally free and doesn't require you to own Necrom or any other DLC. So if you don't have the chapter, or even if you do, you can just open up your map and click on the Endless Archive icon in Necrom to teleport there directly. Now, once you arrive inside, you will be greeted.
Also, did I just see that correctly? Teleporting to a location cost 131 gold. Do players have just billions of gold in this game?
By Master Malkest, who gives you sort of a brief little lore introduction to where you are, what you need to do, what their problems are, and then off you
It looks pretty cool, though. The visuals aren't bad.
you go. You enter the portal just beside you to get started. Now, the basic
If we ignore the fact that it looks like Demon Hunter stuff, then it looks pretty cool, I guess.
structure of every Endless Archive run is exactly the same. You clear 2 rooms of enemies, followed by a boss fight. You repeat this, what's known as a cycle, 5 times, and then you take on what is called the Ark Boss. Defeating the first Ark Boss progresses you into the second Ark, and it's here where everything bumps up. The difficulty, the number of enemies, and the rewards that you get. And then off you go. 2 more rooms of trash, then a boss, repeat that 5 times, fight the second Ark Boss.
This sounds like I'm gonna get bored of it already at the second Ark Boss. I'm not gonna lie, okay? Dude, at least Blizzard tried to make it not seem like you're in the exact same place 15 times in a row. But I think, dude, Bethesda's like, okay, you know what players really loved about Starfield? It's the fact that everything looked and felt the same. Yeah, let's add that to our Elder Scrolls Online. Yeah, players are gonna love that. Really? Wow, man. Again, every day, every time I hear news about Bethesda doing something, I can just see the people at Microsoft starting to regret more and more their 8 billion purchase. No, wait, that was Blizzard. Bethesda was like 3 or 4 billion. Man.
Structure
and also, ironically, Todd Howard getting more and more happier.
Stays the same and repeats infinitely, but it's the specifics of everything in between, the what you're...
Oh, infinitely. That's already the super omega red flag. So, essentially, let me tell you how this is gonna work if you're not brain damaged. You're gonna go in, you're gonna be like, okay, I need to get one of these 2 powers, or otherwise this is probably a bust. You get one of these 2 powers, you just breeze through it, and then you just continue getting these completely overpowered powers that make you one-shot everything that you just look upon. That's how this is gonna work out. This is how it ends.
Facing off against and where you are, that is what changes. What rooms you're in, what basic and elite enemy compositions you'll come up against, and which bosses of the over 65 they have in this pool that you'll have to defeat in order to move forward.
If there's 65 bosses, that means every boss has only 1 or 2 mechanics that it does. Yeah, that's the challenge is real.
And it's really that mixing and matching of the different enemies and bosses that you fight that keep every run feeling quite fresh. So starting with the enemies, each one of the trash pack rooms will consist of some random assortment of enemies pulled from seemingly anywhere in the game. You'll see humans, undead, skeletons, ghosts, spiders, bats, vampires, elementals, spriggan, goblins, you name it. If you have seen it in ESO, odds are it'll show up somewhere here in Endless Archive. Each room you enter will actually summon 3 separate packs of some assortment of any of these enemies for you to clear, and then as you progress and you move forward through these cycles and through the arcs, you'll start seeing larger groups, more enemies thrown in, and just more difficulty all around. And then just like the
look at these lists of buffs, that's just sad.
Enemies, bosses pull from a massive pool of those found in the rest of the game. There are over 65 bosses in total that you'll encounter.
Wow, did you see what that boss just did? Did you see this? That's probably its only mechanic. And probably 10 more bosses have the exact same mechanic, but in a different color. Oh boy. Wow.
65 bosses in total that you'll encounter on any given Endless Archive run. These are made up of a combination of existing dungeon, world, and trial bosses. At the end of each
Oh, look at that. This is my new wave. After playing Lost Ark, I have come to the conclusion that this is my... Also, the graphics overlay. Well played, Bethesda, but I wouldn't expect anything else from you. So this, after playing Lost Ark, my new definition for bad and good bosses is very simple. If a boss ever puts some shit on the ground, and that is not the main mechanic, and that is not the thing you are only looking at and concentrating on, it's a bad boss design, okay? Any boss that just puts fire on the ground and you need to avoid it because it's a minor mechanic is automatically now considered by me to be an absolute fail in design. Because Lost Ark taught me if something's on the ground, it better be the most important thing and the only thing that you are concentrating on, because that's a big mechanic. Everything else is just shit.
dungeon, world, and trial bosses. At the end of each cycle, after clearing those 2 rooms of trash, like I mentioned, you will face off against one random boss that is pulled from that pool of, I think it's like 66 or 67 total, but yeah, somewhere north of 65. And what's really neat about this is that in most cases, these bosses will actually have the same or very similar mechanics to the original encounter. So if you've come across a boss that you fought already in one of the game's dungeons or out in the world, or...
Yeah, look at how great this is. This is such great design. Look at this. There's shit here, there's shit here, there's shit here. And what does it serve? Nothing. It's just annoying. It's just stupid. Well played, Bethesda.
Or whatever, you're gonna have a bit of an advantage because you'll have a rough idea of how that boss encounter goes. On the other hand, even if you come across a boss that you've never seen, which was definitely the case while I was running through Endless Archive, it basically gives you an opportunity to learn the fight. And that way, if you do play more and you start...
What opportunity are we talking about? He's just running and hitting you.
It basically gives you an opportunity to learn the fight. And that way, if you do play more and you start going out and checking out other parts of the game and fighting bosses elsewhere, you might go into some of these other fights learning about these bosses from seeing them in Endless Archives. And then there is the Ark Boss. Now, this actually isn't random. It's the only boss fight that's not random. At the end of every...
Yeah. It's shit. Look at how much stuff it places on the ground, so you just feel bad about your life choices.
Ark, you fight off against Tho at Replicanum. This is basically
this boss might as well be your dad at how disappointing it is.
The head boss of Endless Archives. At the start, you're just fighting the one boss itself, and it gets more challenging in every additional arc, as not only does the boss's health and damage get bumped up, but then also they add additional phases and additional bosses for you to fight simultaneously. And that ramp up in difficulty continues with each arc until you're eventually fighting 4 bosses in a single encounter. And it is hard. It is very hard. And that just brings me to the overall difficulty of Endless Archive in general. This is quite the challenge that they've added to the game. Unlike other instanced PvE content, the Endless Archive, for one, isn't broken up into that multi-2 difficulty tiers of normal and veteran.
It's not challenging. It's not actually hard. They can already tell you. Well, I already said it, actually. It's gonna depend on what kind of powers and upgrades you get. Some of them are gonna be busts, and you're not gonna be able to probably do the thing. And some others are gonna be like, okay, now I can do this for infinity, and I will never lose.
Instead, it just gets increasingly more challenging the further you progress, to the point where it eventually becomes some of the most difficult content available in the game. I would say especially for solo players. But yeah, if you've ever played Elder Scrolls Online, especially as a solo player, which is how I tend to play it most frequently, and you were lacking a challenge, especially like out in the overworld or stuff, Endless Archive offers a real challenge. I couldn't get that far, basically, to put it simply, and I consider myself like at least a decent gamer. But yeah, this is quite difficult. But something that makes it a little easier, and one of the more interesting elements of Endless Archive, is its system of run-specific upgrades. This, along with the randomness of the rooms, the enemies, and the bosses you encounter, are basically what make...
Wait. Uh-huh. Your ultimate costs less. Ultimate costs 2, costs reduced by 2 per stack. Current bonus. Wow. At least World of Warcraft had interesting upgrades. So, Yeah, this is. I'm assuming this is like a minor buff, but still, the fact that this is like 2% less ulti cooldown, bruv.
Randomness of the rooms, the enemies, and the bosses you encounter are basically what make this mode feel like a bit of a roguelike. So after every trash room that you clear, you will get to select from one of two verses. These are temporary buffs that will enhance in some capacity some of your offensive, defensive, or utility capabilities, and that buff will last you into the following room. So you clear one room, you pick a verse, and then that buff stays with
Increase damage done of your active world skills by 100%. Okay.
you into
That's
the
a
next
lot.
room, and then after clearing that room, you will pick a new verse, and the one from before will drop off. So basically, after
That's also stupid. It makes your choices meaningless.
every room, you get a fun little buff for the following room. And these are very, very strong in many
Fun little buff, 2% ulti cooldown. Okay, yeah, fun little buff, he said.
cases. Like Frenzied Zeal that will boost your light attack damage by 200% and grants a stacking buff adding more damage. Or Archival Assault that increases all assault skills damage by 100%. Or there are things like Bountiful Resources, which will make you restore much more resources with heavy attacks. There's a ton of different resource focused ones as well that will restore your health, your magicka, and your stamina. Or there are things like Flame Aura, which will place a flame circle around you, dealing damage every second to anyone within its range. Or Fire Orb that will place an orb on the ground and you touch it, it creates a tether between you two, and then anything in between that tether from you and the orb takes a ton of damage. Or there are things like Reactive Curse, which makes it so that whenever you block an attack, it puts a curse on the attacker. Or Mighty Bash, where bashing an enemy who's casting a spell not only interrupts them, it will also stun them for a few seconds and then trigger a massive AoE explosion that in most cases, at least in my earlier runs, was clearing entire rooms. I mean, these verses are very, very strong, but it's for that reason that they only last from one room into the next. But then there are visions. While verses
Okay, so it's essentially meaningless. That's what I'm currently hearing here. That this mechanic is meaningless.
provide a nice big buff from room to room, visions grant you smaller buffs, but they last for the entire run, and in many cases, these are stacked.
Okay, how good are they? Blocking attack causes starting to become reactive, impacting reaction targets with a fully charged heavy attack causes them to reduce their damage done by 25% for. Okay, this can only occur every 2.5 seconds. Okay, I guess that matters.
Stacking, at which point they can get very strong as you progress very far. So you get to choose one new vision after defeating every cycle boss. So you get the verses when you clear the
Yeah, so how many cycles are you supposed to do? 10? When you can expect something to get really strong, maybe? All gold gains increased by 25% per stack. That's horrible.
trash rooms, you get a vision.
Fire damage taken decreased by 5%. To 0 out of 3 versions. When you acquire 3 versions, you gain access to the Iron Atronach utility verse. What's the Iron Atronach utility verse? I mean, okay. This is exactly like the tower. When the tower first came out, people were happy. People were like, wow, this is fun. Yeah, but it only took you a couple of runs, literally a couple of hours to figure out that this shit is repetitive and very, 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 very boring. And this is the same thing that's going to probably happen here, honestly.
When you kill a boss. And because they last for the rest of your run, yes, they don't start out quite as powerful as verses, but many of them, because they can be stacked, can get very strong over time. There's things like Boundless Potential, which will reduce your ultimate cost by 2% per stack. What if you got that up to 100? You know what I'm saying? It's just a free ultimate spam. Or Brawling Brits that increases critical damage with martial attacks by 10% per stack. There's Ferocious Support, where heavy attacks will now.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Like, something like that is blatantly overpowered. So, if you stack that, you can probably one-shot things at some point. That's just bad.
apply a bleed to the target, and this is part of a 3-piece set that grants this bestial transformation or scorching support, which will intermittently place a pool of lava at your feet that does damage and snares enemies. This one also part of a 3-piece set that grants the Iron Atronach vision, and that is just a small list of all of the visions and all of the verses, both of which just add a lot to this mode and really open up some crazy power scaling potential, along with access to just having new abilities that your class otherwise wouldn't have. Now,
so this is gonna be, by the way, typical Bethesda stuff, okay? People are gonna find something really cool and interesting to play with, and people are gonna be pretty happy about it at the start, and then Bethesda's gonna nerf it. Well, if this mode has 15 bugs that delete player characters, they're gonna keep those ones in, you know? It's a risky business playing a Bethesda game at the end of the day. So, this is gonna be horrible. They're just gonna nerf all the good stuff. That's what's gonna happen. They're gonna nerf all the good stuff because that's the only thing Bethesda actually updates. Nerfs the things that people like.
Periodically, as you're going through this process of clearing rooms of trash, fighting a boss, getting those upgrades of the verses and visions along the way, occasionally you're going to come across what's known as the portal to the unknown. These offer either a combat encounter, a puzzle to solve, or some sort of mini game for you to complete that, if successful, will grant you an extra loot chest and also a bonus verse upgrade for your following room. Some of the ones that I've seen included a tough duel against a single opponent. They were like summoning up tentacles and shooting all sorts of laser beams and stuff. There was one that transforms you into this floating squid, and then you have to hunt down these books, and if you do that, you get a chest and an extra verse. Or there was one that transformed me into a goat where I was running away from some butcher or something, trying to consume food until I had enough where I could fight back and take them out.
Wow.
The portal to the unknown is just further mixing things up from the standard formula of trash, trash, boss, 5 times.
It sounds like those rooms are gonna just be annoying. It sounds like those rooms are gonna just take too long and be annoying.
Ark Boss, this mixes it up some more, and frankly I'd like to see more things like this, more potential outcomes when entering the portal to the unknown, and more other
Do you also sometimes encounter vendors that sell you upgrades? Because that's also a thing that was in the Maw Tower.
Portals to other unknowns, I guess, or something like that. Now, like many other roguelikes,
the Maw Tower was the jail, the jailer's thing. It had a specific name. The Maw was the place, but the tower of the jailer? I don't remember. I should Google, honestly.
Endless Archive does have a fail state. This comes in the form of threads. Basically, you start each run with 3 threads, and if you die, you lose a thread. No more threads equals end of run. So you can acquire some extra threads occasionally, but it's very rare. In most cases, if you die 3 times, the run is over, and that is part of the roguelike. You're trying to push as far as you can without dying. That's a big feature of roguelike systems, mechanics, and modes. Now, as mentioned at the top, you can play this solo or with a
TORGHAST. There we go. It's called TORGHAST. Yeah. Elder Scrolls Online is literally stealing the worst mechanic that has ever been introduced to World of Warcraft. TORGHAST. What a time to be alive.
Single other person as a duo. You're also able to bring an NPC companion with you, although personally I just don't care much for companions, so when I've run it solo, I've just been actually solo doing it myself. And playing into this solo and duo split is the fact that there are leaderboards. Simply put, the further you progress through more stages, cycles, and arcs, the higher your score is going to be. There are separate leaderboards for both solo and duo because, as mentioned, duos do have an advantage as there seems to be no difficulty scaling based on group size, so groups of 2 are likely to progress further. As you progress through the Endless Archives, you will be occasionally, especially when you open up those loot chests, you're going to be awarded what is called archival fortunes. These can be spent at 1 or 2 merchants that are found right near the entrance to the Endless Archives. There is Filer Ool who sells this.
No, that's different.
Rotating stock of items like treasure maps, cosmetics, companion equipment, and a few other useful
that's slightly different than what I meant.
Things. And then there is Filer Tezzerus, who sells furnishings, gear sets, crafting mats, and additional permanent upgrades. 1 extra thread, so basically 1 extra life for every run. You can buy something that increases permanently your movement speed whenever you're in Endless Archives, or there are ones that improve either the strength of the verses and visions you find, but also ones that give you access to a third your choice of verses and visions whenever you come across
Yeah, that's OP.
one. Both of those pretty significantly huge. Having more choice options from the pool means you're more likely to get a setup that you really like. So overall, having played this for the past week, I want to share a few thoughts on it. For what I like, first of all, it's very challenging. And as you might know, if you followed ESO or played ESO over the years, lack of difficulty is a common complaint, especially for solo players. Lack of difficult content and challenge. This certainly provides a lot of that. I really like the roguelike elements. The random buffs that you can pick up are really cool. The random boss fights that pull from all over the game. I've seen a bunch of boss.
Dude, they're just placing shit on the ground. I can't.
That I'd never seen before. I like that quite a lot. That was a lot of fun.
Oh,
and I also just
boy.
like the fact that this is just free. It's a free update. It's part of the base game. It does not require anyone to purchase DLC, to have ESO Plus, to purchase any chapters. No, it's just, if you have ESO, you can just jump in and play this. I really like that.
Good.
Some points of improvements, things I'd like to see more added to this in the future or whatever. I would love more biome diversity, although they do mix things up quite a bit with the enemies and bosses you fight. A lot of times as you're going through, it's like you're in the same spaces over and over again. I would love to see this mixed up more. ESO is such a wide, diverse biome potential. There's so many different areas and landscapes and environments that they could pull from. I know this is set in Apocrypha, and it's all part of the Endless Archives things with stacks of books and all this stuff and green colors everywhere, but I would love to see them mix this up. It's just some visual diversity in the environments a bit.
Yep, I don't even need to play this to know exactly that that's going to be a problem. It was blatantly obvious.
That'd be great. I would also just love to see them go crazier with the buffs and stuff, you know, given this is a PvE focus mode. Add some more over-the-top ridiculous verses and visions. That just, it would just make it really, really fun. And then lastly, my biggest point of improvement, something that I personally would love to see, is save progress. As of now, there isn't one. So obviously, if you die 3 times, that ends a run, but also if you leave, that ends a run. There's no way to save how far you've progressed. And I've heard runs taking some players upwards of 12 hours as they're pushing higher and higher. That is a long time to commit straight away.
Yep. I mean, it's cool that it's endless, though. Don't get me wrong, that's actually good. I mean, they stole TORGHAST but added a singular improvement for it. What a time to be alive.
Without any way to like checkpoint or save your progress, so that would be another point of improvement that I would love to see. But overall, it's pretty cool. I like that this again is a free update. I like that it adds brand new content to the game, a new way to play. I love roguelike systems, and this
Bruh. No, I just think it's funny. From all the things you could steal, you stole the most hated mechanic in the history of World of Warcraft. That is the accomplishment right there, honestly. Anyway, that was Fords Gaming. This was hilarious. 10 out of 10. My man's at least getting paid, yo. Also, great channel. Anyway, this was Quizzer Sitsen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.